right, it's that time. Let's go and check out to see what the U.S. Supreme Court is doing with their orders list. And this deals at least with our focus here. It's Illinois in Focus Daily. I'm Greg Bishop, editor of Illinois at thecentersquare.com. But what we're looking at here live is the U.S. Supreme Court order list. And we're going to get something today about the conference they held on Friday. And we're looking at the Viramontes case. It's a case out of Cook County challenging Cook County's ban for semi-automatic firearms and magazines over certain capacities. But it worked in the state ban that came much later after the county ban. But that case going all the way up and down the circuit to the U.S. Supreme Court now. So let's go ahead and pull up the U.S. Supreme Court's websites and their order list. And again, checking some of the live chat to see if you got people in there already pulling that up. Here's the order list. So what we're going to do is we're going to search for Viramontes, VR. Where are we at? Right, it's VR. Let's pull up the actual spelling here, and we'll try just copying this entirely. Go to the orders list. Do a reverse search. It's not showing it, so they may be relisting it if it's not on here. So just to make sure the search function's working. Yep, it's working. So don't see the case Viramontes v. Cook County here, but let's go to the page on the Supreme Court's website for Viramontes and see if it has been relisted. I imagine you'll see something posted here eventually about it being relisted, but even people in the live chat confirming nothing there. So no Cook County case that the U.S. Supreme Court deciding to take, but they are also not saying they're denying this. So that's another important aspect here is they are not denying to take this case. But a lot of speculation because you've got the Bevis case on preliminary grounds that went all the way up to the U.S. Supreme Court. The Bevis case was the Naperville challenge that law weapons owner Robert Bevis filed against Naperville in November of 2022. And that was several months before the state enacted its statewide ban in January of 2023. Bevis suing, getting some motion in the courts, and then wrapping in the Illinois ban as part of Bevis's case on preliminary grounds that went all the way up to the U.S. Supreme Court. They said they're not going to take the case because it's not ripe yet. And then they put it back down into the district courts. And then you have the state challenge, the Southern District of Illinois federal challenge, where the four plaintiffs groups came together in the Barnett case. That was challenging the state's gun ban. That case, also on preliminary grounds, went all the way up to the U.S. Supreme Court. They said not ready yet. Went back down into the Southern District for the merits. They dealt with the merits. They then moved on to the appeals courts. The appeals court heard the case on the merits. We're waiting for them to release their ruling. Now, that case, the Barnett case, can't get to the U.S. Supreme Court until on the merits, not on preliminary grounds. It's already gone to the U.S. Supreme Court on preliminary grounds, if I recall. But on the merits, it can't go to the U.S. Supreme Court until the Seventh Circuit acts. Is the Seventh Circuit waiting to see what the U.S. Supreme Court does with the Viramontes case? Because we've already seen some of the arguments into the Viramontes case saying this doesn't have a sufficient record. So, are they going to take this case? The Barnett case out of the Southern District, where they do have a judge ruling the law is unconstitutional after a 4-day bench trial, thousands of pages of documents, dozens of witnesses and experts testifying even in the court, that obviously has a record to it. So that's what the Seventh Circuit U.S. Court of Appeals is dealing with in that gun ban challenge. But the U.S. Supreme Court has this Viramontes case, which they have not told us what's going on now with the case, right? Well, it's kind of in limbo, right? It'll probably be relisted, and they'll have another conference, and then we'll come back and refresh the order list from the U.S. Supreme Court to see if they're going to give us that, or exactly how that's going to play out. But obviously, we'll be watching it, and I imagine if you're watching us, and you can stay up to date. So that's why you should like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell for Illinois in Focus Daily. All right, that's all I got for you guys today. City of Chicago careening towards shutdown as city aldermen not able to come to terms on the city's budget that has to be approved by the end of this month to take effect January 1st. Well, Chicago Mayor Brandon Johnson has a slew of tax increase ideas, but Chicago aldermen don't seem to be on board with those. This is Illinois in Focus Daily. I'm Greg Bishop with you each and every weekday morning. Get to thecentersquare.com where you can sign up for the latest to get headlines in your inbox. Again, go to thecentersquare.com. Click newsletter, and you can join us there. It's not just Illinois, though, where I'm the editor. It's also national. You've got a whole host of stories from all across the country, including from Washington, D.C., that it touches on, for instance, the farmer relief that the Trump administration announced yesterday. So go check that out and get those headlines in your inbox. Chicago Mayor Brandon Johnson yesterday holding a news conference to discuss the issue of, well, the city's budget, $16+ billion he's looking to spend, but it's a $1 billion+ deficit that they're looking to fill. You've got the mayor for months talking about a variety of different taxes. He tried getting the property tax passed, but that didn't work in the previous budget. He said he wouldn't bring anything like that back, but then as the city's not able to come to terms with how to tax and spend, you get into some more loggerheads where you've got less than 3 weeks now for them to pass a budget for it to start on New Year's Day. And what could happen if that doesn't come to fruition? Well, the city of Chicago could have a shutdown, and you could have city services dramatically impacted. Here's Chicago Mayor Brandon Johnson yesterday.
Is this number the sticking point?
Thanks, yeah.
Okay.
Hi, Mayor.
Hi. We will also do everything in our power to prevent a government shutdown. A shutdown benefits nobody, least of all the poor and working people of Chicago who rely upon the critical services that the city provides. The last time Chicago came close to a government shutdown was in 1984 when Alders, Burke, and Verdoliak tried to override Mayor Harold Washington's veto before striking a deal hours before the deadline. We don't want history to repeat itself. We know it was Mark Twain that said that though history doesn't necessarily repeat itself, it certainly rhymes. And we would much prefer that the council continue to work with me to land a fair compromise that protects working people and ensuring that we're making progress at addressing the financial mess that we all inherited.
So again, Chicago Mayor Brandon Johnson saying they inherited a financial mess. He's been in office for several years now. I mean, they're already talking about the next mayoral election. Where is this an inherited mess? I mean, even before you came into office as the mayor, the city of Chicago and the just gobs of federal tax dollars going in through COVID relief, for instance. So interesting to hear the mayor say that, given, you know, here he is, he's been mayor for several years now, and what's he inherited exactly? So the mayor talking about a variety of different things when it comes to taxing and spending, right? And he's talked about a head tax, for instance, and that would be a tax on each employee over a certain number of employees that a business may have. Monthly, they would be charged a tax on each individual. And just by way of thinking about this, small business, 50 to 100, if they have 100 or more, they could be paying $22,000 a year just in a head tax to the city of Chicago. He says negotiations continue about all kinds of what he calls progressive revenue.
This is the context our budget negotiations are under right now. So I sent a letter to council members. I sent it this morning to give them an update of how the state of negotiations are going right now. We continue to be open to negotiations and compromise, but we will not sacrifice the poor and working people of Chicago to balance this budget. We will also do everything in our power to prevent a government shutdown. A shutdown benefits nobody, least of all the poor and working people of Chicago who rely upon the critical services that the city provides.
Again, talking about the government shutdown and wanting to avoid that. Question was asked about union contracts if the government shuts down in Chicago and how to deal with that.
Well, look, again, we're working hard to make sure that a shutdown does not occur because, to your point, there are collective bargaining agreements and other city services that are mandated to be fulfilled. And, of course, our Department of Law continues to update me on so the legal parameters around if such a thing were to occur. But again, I'm going to remain hopeful that City Council does its part to ensure that a shutdown doesn't occur.
And what is exactly that part that the City Council has to do? Well, apparently it's find more, quote, progressive revenue. Could that be the head tax?
In terms of our ability to negotiate around the details of this particular revenue generator, that again is going to go towards critical services, I've always been amenable to compromise.
Well, can you distinguish, though, between a 100-member company that's a small company, really, compared to, thousands of employees in a mega corporation?
Well, you've already made the distinction. They have more employees.
But are you going to?
Well, as I said, I'm amenable to having a discussion around how we generate revenue from this particular idea. Look, the ultimate goal, as I've said repeatedly for the last 2.5 years, we need Springfield to support the state as a whole around progressive revenue ideas, of which all of you have had a chance to embrace those ideas. In fact, these ideas did not give birth when I became mayor. These ideas go back over a decade, right? So again, I've always been open to compromise. The only thing that I've said that I think, here's the only thing that I don't believe we should do, is negotiate our values, right? Our values are to protect working people. How we generate revenue to do that, I've always been open to compromise.
But is it to generate revenue above and beyond what the city's already bringing in? I mean, the city's among the highest taxed cities in the country, in a state that's among the highest taxed in the nation, and we're facing the highest property taxes and corporate tax rates higher than average. You got unemployment issues and a whole host of other things. Gas taxes. You look at buying a pack of smokes in Chicago, and holy cow, that'll make you quit real quick. So obviously, he's looking for more revenue than what the city's already getting, because he says they need to spend more on education, as somebody associated with the teachers union, and public safety for more crime intervention. What about more police? And obviously there's the ongoing concern of the use of state tax dollars for non-citizen migrants who are here illegally.
Those that say don't tread on me. The government's treading, my friend. When will you speak? When will you speak up? When they come after you, when mass, unidentified federal agents go to your small town?
The government is going after illegal aliens, people that broke the law. Many of them are the worst of the worst. Why would you not want them gone? Why do you want them in your district? Why do you want to protect them?
Governor J.B. Pritzker enacting expansions of Illinois' migrant sanctuary policies, with Republicans pushing back. And it is Illinois in Focus Daily. Good morning. I'm Greg Bishop, editor of Illinois at the Center Square. You can find the latest at thecentersquare.com. Get the newsletter in your inbox. But you'll see the headline there. Pritzker signs, quote, great law against immigration enforcement and dismisses ethics concerns about the law that many say is going to open up a floodgate of lawsuits against a variety of institutions and even police officers. So here's the story. You can read it again at thecentersquare.com. Governor J.B. Pritzker says new law to protect people from federal law enforcement is a great one, despite ethical questions about campaign donations, the bill's sponsors, and private right of action that the measure leads to. So House Bill 1312, which we've talked about in the past. Once the measure was passed, we talked about it because of the floor debate in both the Senate and the House, but also just the mere fact that this bill started out back in January of this year as a measure to recognize prisoners of war and missing in action. And it passed the House in April unanimously. But then in the Senate in October, the final hours of fall veto session, the Senate gutted it and replaced it with a bill expanding migrant sanctuary policies. Ultimately, it passed in the early morning hours of Halloween, and yesterday, Governor J.B. Pritzker signed the measure into
This
law.
legislation that I'm signing today will allow for a civil lawsuit against law enforcement officers who violate the Illinois or United States constitutional rights of the members of the public that they are supposed to be protecting. No one, and I mean no one, is above the law, especially those wearing a badge representing the law.
So the governor saying that this allows for private rights of action against law enforcement for violating certain rights. And it also does a variety of things, like requires hospital settings, universities, daycares to have a plan in place and how to communicate with law enforcement and to not hand over immigration status or perceived immigration status to law enforcement. Here's Senate President Don Harmon, one of the sponsors of the bill, actually the official that gutted and replaced the POWMIA bill. He also got money from the Illinois Trial Lawyers Association, which is an association of trial lawyers that benefit from going to trial on a whole host of things. He got $25,000 from that particular group, and here's what he had to say about the measure.
There is no badge, no title, no mask that puts anyone above the Constitution. This law sends the message that if you abuse your authority, there are consequences. Our rights follow us into the courthouse, onto campus, to the hospital, and when taking our kids to daycare. No one gets to take them away. We're providing the victims of this chaotic federal assault a clear legal path to go after their abusers and to hold them accountable.
So Harmon talking about more litigation. And Speaker Welch, he was another sponsor of the bill, also receiving $25,000 from the Illinois Trial Lawyers Association, talked about reflections of the past and would people stand up back then if they aren't standing up now.
If we were back in the Jim Crow days, would we stand up to Jim Crow? I asked them. If we were back in the days of the Holocaust, would we stand up and speak out against internment camps? I asked them, would we stand between our neighbors and the SS? Because history will judge our actions in this moment, just as it did our predecessors.
So the measure is now law, and we'll hear a little bit more from the news conference, but I wanted to include Republican State Representative John Cabello's reaction to this particular measure now becoming law.
You know, this was supposed to be going after ICE and federal agents. Well, they're federal agents, so there's a thing called the Supremacy Clause, I believe, where this won't apply to them at all. All this does is applies to the state's law enforcement officers, and I guess they just don't want law enforcement to do their job. They want them, I mean, might as well slap a security patch on them, because most law enforcement officers are getting pretty sick and tired of the Democrats and them passing laws that impede them doing their job lawfully. I keep hearing that there's it's flu season, and it's a blue flu that's coming that could last quite some time.
Cabello is in law enforcement, next to being a state representative. So it's interesting to hear his thoughts. And the pushback from Republicans, and we heard it from State Representative Patrick Windhorst, the Republican floor leader in the House, and he said that while you're trying to go after ICE, there's the Federal Supremacy Clause that is likely not going to allow those lawsuits to move forward. So this is really just going to open it up to lawsuits against local and state police. And then you also have the potential for lawsuits against daycare centers if they don't have policies in place. And questions about what about immigrant daycare centers? Can they not ask about immigration status? Then you also have the liability of hospitals and universities and how that's going to play out with possible penalties against those institutions for violating this new expansion of the migrant sanctuary policies. State Senator Omar Aquino, Democrat from Chicago, pretty impassioned yesterday, standing next to the governor before he signed the measure. Here's what Aquino had to say yesterday.
This was...
And again, this is from the news conference, the bill signing ceremony.
This is time for everyone to speak up, including those on the other side. Those that say, don't tread on me. The government's treading, my friend. When will you speak up? When they come after you? When mass, unidentified federal agents go to your small town? Go to your churches? Go to your schools, your daycare centers? Is that when? Will it be when it's too late? I hope not.
I asked Cabello for a response to Aquino and that assertion that the government is treading on individuals.
The government is going after illegal aliens, people that broke the law. Many of them are the worst of the worst. And what I'm saying is that there are so many that are murderers, that are rapists, that are child molesters, that are going after children, that how you want us to, what? Is this guy for real? No, number one, I don't even know who he is. If he was sitting next to me, I wouldn't know. So if he wants to have a conversation, I'd be more willing to talk to him and try to open up his eyes that, there's criminals here. People that are hurting other human beings. Why would you not want them gone? Why do you want them in your district? Why do you want to protect them?
So again, that's State Representative John Cabello responding to State Senator Omar Aquino on this. And keep in mind, yesterday we talked about how the ICE director, Todd Lyons, is urging for the state to turn over 4,000 illegal immigrants that have charges against them on murder and sex crimes against children and a variety of other violent crimes that Illinois is holding right now in their custody. And ICE is saying hand those 4,000 over, and also claiming that 1,700 criminal aliens have been released onto the streets under the Pritzker administration since January 20th this year. So you've got ICE urging the state to start cooperating. And I asked Cabello, would the law that the governor signed yesterday, expanding the state's migrant sanctuary policies, be necessary if it wasn't for the state having the Trust Act that prohibits local and state law enforcement from cooperating with federal immigration officials, to have the Way Forward Act that prohibits the use of county jails as detention beds for ICE. ICE having to, quote, flood the zone because the state and local police are not cooperating by law with federal immigration enforcement. So would the flooding the zone be necessary if it wasn't for all of these, migrant sanctuary policies? And Cabello responding to that question.
No, not at all. Plus, all the governor had to do is say, what do you need us to do to help? And none of this would have happened. None of it would have happened. They would have cooperated fully with the state and went after the people that, if there was actual help, this wouldn't have happened. You wouldn't have had the things going on in the streets like they were.
Somebody else sounding off on the issue of immigration enforcement. Chicago flips red. They held a news conference yesterday, primarily to talk about the city budget, and we'll unpack some of what they had to say yesterday in the next segment. But Danielle Carter-Walters, she said that elected officials are violating U.S. law.
Under the federal law, Article 8, USC, Section 1324 says that aiding and abetting or encouraging illegal aliens is a crime. So when our leaders like Byron Central Lopez, Brandon Johnson, J.D. Pritzker encourage these policies, they are breaking the law. They are betraying the people of this city, and they need to be held accountable for it. Enough is enough.
Well, the law is the law in Illinois, and you still got litigation against the state's migrant sanctuary policies tied up in court. The Trump administration going after Illinois, Cook County, and Chicago. You also have the state of Illinois going after the Trump administration for the use of the National Guard, both cases tied up in courts. So where's this going to go? We'll be keeping an eye on it here with Illinois in Focus Daily.
One of the most consequential budgets that I believe that our city has been met with. And I believe there's a pathway forward by challenging these large corporations to pay their fair share.
We are calling for a boycott. We will not pay another cent in property taxes until we see a forensic audit, until we see where our tax dollars are going.
Well, the time continues to crunch towards the end of the month when the city of Chicago has to have a budget passed, and that doesn't seem like it's going to be happening at least anytime soon. And the city council officials going to be meeting today to discuss things. It is Illinois in Focus Daily. Good morning. I'm Greg Bishop with you each and every weekday morning. You can wake up with us here for Illinois in Focus, but you can also get the headlines in your inbox. Go to thecentersquare.com and the Illinois page. You can find these stories and more. So, Chicago mayor revises head tax, and Chicago Flips Red opposes the budget. And you've got the Chicago Flips Red organization pretty vocal, even testifying in Congress. But Chicago Mayor Brandon Johnson, he's talking about the budget and where they're at with a variety of things. Here he is yesterday talking about the head tax, and in particular how he initially wanted to charge, $25 per person per month for employers over 100, but now he's revising that to employers over 500, and I think 30 some odd dollars a month that they'd have to pay. Here he is talking about that head tax proposal.
Well, first of all, this is not a punishment for having workers, right? Let's keep in mind, you all, this revenue stream was enacted in 1973, all the way up to 2014. Think about Chicago from 1973 to 2014. Can you look outside these windows and see evidence of job killing and people being whacked? In fact, if you look at our economy, it grew substantially under this particular revenue stream. Here's what I can also tell you. When it went away, there's no empirical evidence that somehow it made us more competitive. In fact, when it went away, guess what came in its place? 3 consecutive years of property tax increases, fines, and fees. Over $500 million. There's more evidence that with this revenue stream going away, that working people had to do more. So I appreciate the question, but I'm just saying, if anybody's gotten whacked, it's been working people in this city, right? We have seen a decline in population as a result of these failures. And so what we have done, again, negotiating the details around my values, is to set up a system.
There's a lot there, including him acknowledging that they lost population. It was kind of interesting in the population debate, hearing officials talk about how all of the state of Illinois is not losing population. The Chicago area is not losing population. No, they are losing population. And we've got new estimates that are going to be coming out. Typically, they come out around Christmas time, but checking the U.S. Census, it looks like they're not going to be releasing that set of numbers until January. So we might not get that end-of-year story about population decreases in the state of Illinois. So we may have to wait until January for that, but regardless, so the mayor talking about the revision of his head tax and how he wants to bring it back, and you have the Chicago Flips Red group not too happy about things, and during a news conference yesterday, you have Daniel Carter Walters sharing a clip from the Center Square, and the story in particular was about Byron Sigcho Lopez and Chicago tenants groups looking to subsidize non-citizen migrants rent because, well, here's Byron Sigcho Lopez talking about that with the Center Square.
Is that we have a lunatic that is creating harm in American cities who don't agree with him, and we need to help people at least to survive this moment. And we also should consider, just like in the pandemic, rental assistance. That's what I've been urging Governor Pritzker, or mayors or county representatives to work together, just as we've done in other crises, to tax the rich, tax the millionaires. There's already a proposal on a surcharge at 3% that will generate $4.5 billion. Massachusetts did it at 4%. They raised $5.6 billion. I think that we could do something similar, and I think everybody agrees. The question is, where's the political will so that we can provide some sort of rental assistance? And I think we also should consider a moratorium on evictions, just given the severity of this economic attack and social attack on our city.
So again, Sigcho Lopez making those comments to one of our contributors at the Center Square, Glenn Minnis, and you can read that story again at thecentersquare.com. Chicago Tenant Group calls for eviction moratorium amid ICE raids. Well, Daniel Carter Walters saying that that's not going to happen.
Byron Sigcho Lopez has the nerve to propose taxing the rich, not to give us economic relief, but to fund housing assistance for illegal aliens. Right. Taxing the millionaires and billionaires is not about helping us. It's about funding services for people who broke the law and are now benefiting from our suffering.
So that's a moment from Chicago Flips Red's live stream yesterday and talking about the city's budget. Now, about the city's budget, of course, they've got until the end of this month to pass something and get it signed by the mayor. But is it possible, if it doesn't have the tax increases that the mayor's looking for, that there's going to be a veto? A question asked to the mayor yesterday.
Is there basically
earlier this week?
Is there basically a veto waiting to happen if they present a balanced budget of their own that doesn't include the head tax?
Again, it really depends. If there's another form of progressive revenue that gets at, a balanced budget that ensures that our investments in community safety are protected and secured, that's a budget worth reflecting on, right? I've said this from the very beginning. Find progressive revenue streams that allows for our budget to be balanced, so that we don't continue to sacrifice poor and working people. Doubling garbage fees, coming up with scenarios that have not had any real vetting or a citation that could substantiate or corroborate their particular assertion or claim that's incomplete. And my team was available for nearly 9 hours on the weekend. We were having conversations yesterday. This is what I do all day, every day, nonstop. This is one of the most consequential budgets that I believe that our city has been met with. And I believe there's a pathway forward by challenging these large corporations to pay their fair share.
So again, you got the pay their fair share comment that's pretty persistent with Mayor Brandon Johnson, and also the terms progressive revenue and making the rich pay. And listen, I mean, Chicago's already getting $16 billion into their coffers. $16 billion each year. That's what, at least what the mayor's asking for this coming year, and it's got $1 billion deficit in it. So they're trying to find a way to plug that hole. Could it be, increased garbage fees? Could it be this head tax? Could it be increased property taxes? Well, again, Chicago Flips Red holding a news conference yesterday opposing the budget, warning that they're going to go after the seats of aldermen that approve any tax increases, and they're also urging that residents, act.
We are calling for a boycott. We will not pay another cent in property taxes until we see a forensic audit, until we see where our tax dollars are going, and until we see it being spent to help the people who actually live here, to help our children and our families and our neighbors. Just like he said, hands off Chicago. We say hands off our property taxes and hands off our taxes. Right. We need answers. Right. We need transparency. We need to know where every penny of our tax dollars is going. Yeah. And I'm calling on the White House, the DOJ, the FBI to step in and investigate how Brandon Johnson administration is handling these resources.
Will there be a boycott of paying property taxes in Cook County? Be interesting to see how that plays out.
I'd rather see you in an orange jumpsuit. I'd rather see you locked up because you doing the most heinous crime. And Trump, get DOJ and get this man out of office.
There are some individuals that want chaos to occur because those interests benefit from chaos, and they will pit communities against one another to fulfill their political goal.
So Chicago Mayor Brandon Johnson yesterday during a news conference after a city council meeting where council did not approve a budget. We've got less than 3 weeks here before the city has to approve a budget, or else you could see the government shut down in Chicago. It is Illinois in Focus Daily. I'm Greg Bishop with you each and every weekday morning here for the Center Square. Go to thecentersquare.com to get the latest headlines in your inbox by signing up for the newsletter. You can find this podcast anywhere you get podcasts. Just search Illinois in Focus. And of course, subscribe to this channel. We're live each and every weekday morning, breaking things down for what's happening in the land of Lincoln. So let's get to it. Yesterday was a Chicago City Council meeting. It was a shorter meeting than they usually have. Usually they go all day, but this was just a 2-hour meeting. And at the beginning of each meeting, you have public comment period. It's 30 minutes set aside. Several people did get up and supported, for instance, keeping line items in the budget for summer jobs for youth. You had others pushing for more finances to help with, flood damage. You have support for other efforts that aldermen have in their proposed budget, but things still not coming together. And of course, in the city council meeting, you had residents standing up, sharing their thoughts. Dennis White's one of them who regularly gets up there to share his thoughts, and here's some of what he had to say yesterday.
You are an anti-American, Brandon Johnson, because you commit a heinous crime. Ralph, excuse me, are you paying attention to what I'm saying, sir? Because I'm still talking on my time right now. When you on my time, the attention go on to the speakers, not to somebody else who you want to talk to, Brandon Johnson. Now, you committed a black-on-black crime. That black-on-black crime is you raising property taxes on the south side and the west side of Chicago right offhand. When you over here allow teen takeover and stuff, you trying to justify you don't want nothing to happen. Now, a 14-year-old boy is over here, their parents is getting ready for another funeral. And your kids are safe with 150 police details. So when you over here talking about we want to put skin in the game to raise corporate taxes and stuff, you want to tax the rich, but you got $5 million in the CTU pension plan. You need to tax yourself on that one right there, but you're not going to do that. And then you got your cronies like Jess Fuentes, Andre Vasquez, Cincho Lopez, all the Hispanic KKKs over here trying to distract us with the anti-ICE protests and stuff. We want these illegal out. That's right. We want them out now. This right here is the Constitution. Some of y'all know it, some of y'all read it, but some of y'all don't respect it. And the first thing it say we the people. It doesn't say Brandon Johnson. It doesn't say we the politician. We're going to get you out that seat. But before we pledgely vote you out, I'd rather see you in an orange jumpsuit. I'd rather see you locked up because you doing the most heinous crime. And Trump, get DOJ and get this man out of office.
So again, Dennis White, he's shared his thoughts before, similar in previous city council meetings. But you had also Danielle Carter Walters get up and share her thoughts. But before she did, she aired some of Brandon Johnson's words.
There are lines of Chicagoans right now of people who do not have food, you guys. And if you've never gone hungry, you wouldn't know why I have that urgency. If you've never opened up your refrigerator and there's nothing in it, the poverty sucks. Corporations are making a killing right now, and we have alders that are more interested in defending these big corporations than families like mine who went without food and electricity and could not afford rent and mortgage. Get me something I can work with.
What in the Tyler Perry movie audition is this? Okay. With the fake cries, what is this? See, we know what it's like. We knew what it was like last year when we came down here and we begged these aldermen, this Grace 50 aldermen and you, not to spend our money on illegal aliens, to put it in our communities. We begged you for it. So we know what it was like when we was down here begging you for it last year. We know what it's like when Bionomics was in full effect. We know what it's like right now when my property taxes, right now, bill came out. And we're trying to figure out how we're going to stay in our homes, senior citizens that's on a fixed income, trying to figure out how they're going to pay these high property taxes. Me trying to figure it out. So, oh yeah, we know what it's like. But we know you don't know what it's like. You in your administration that's getting these raises. Let's talk about these raises.
And she went on to name several people who are possibly going to get raises within Chicago city government. One was upwards to $50,000 in a raise, and she proceeded to name the individuals, how much money they could get, and at least one proposed budget idea, and she did that all the way up until her time was done. But then after the Chicago City Council meeting yesterday, Chicago Mayor Brandon Johnson held a news conference and started talking about some of the details here and what he won't support, and the word veto was thrown around several times.
Did you see anything in the rival budget plan formally introduced today to the city council that you could support, or are you standing firm on your threat to veto any budget plan that includes an increase to the garbage fee?
Well, let me just say that I do appreciate the effort, the ongoing effort of members of the city council to provide some, not just feedback to my proposal, but give me something else to consider. I have not gone completely through the document. I tried to use some of the time that I had to look through it. What I did see was still nearly the doubling of garbage collection fees. I don't support a budget that places such an incredible burden on working people at a time in which President Trump has made life quite difficult for working people across this country. The city of Chicago should not be adding to that burden. And so, no, I cannot support a budget that nearly doubles the garbage fee for working people.
So the mayor saying he's not going to support any budget that has a garbage collection fee increase. And he was asked about it again with that word veto being thrown around.
Just to clarify, earlier you said you do not support a budget with increase to the garbage tax.
I do not.
And you would veto such a plan?
Yep.
Is that something, I know that you've been opposed, is that something that you would veto as if it gets approved?
Well, you know, look, I guess that's the word of the day, veto. I have not made that type of, I have not taken that position. What we have said from the very beginning, you know, banning sales for people under the age of 21 and having stronger regulation is important. I think we should, you know, pay closer attention to see what happens at the federal level.
So again, a lot of different variables worked in. What about banning hemp? Another question there. But ultimately, with the budget timeline here, they've got until the end of the month to pass something. And what is that ultimately going to look like? Some aldermen and even some states representatives have urged the city of Chicago to legalize video gambling. Listen, video gambling is legal across the state of Illinois, but Chicago is allowed to obviously not have it, so they have to allow for it. But here in Springfield, I mean, you've got around every corner, there's a video gaming parlor. There's video gaming in practically every restaurant and bar. It's all over the place, but not in Chicago. What about that idea of video gambling and finding some revenue that way for the city instead of going after businesses or increasing property taxes?
The counter proposal from Alderman shared today lists video gambling terminals, legalizing them and taxing them as a part of their budget. Do you support that? Why? Why not? Do you think it's regressive?
Well, we're going to look at, you know, all of what has been proposed. My team is going to scour through and look at some of the projections that some members of the city council have put forward. But I can tell you, though, whether it's that particular revenue stream or others, it's evident from conversations that we've had that even individuals who signed on to the proposal have admitted that they don't support everything on the proposal. Right, so this is going to be an ongoing conversation.
This is something that's come up before in council. What did
it
you
has, right? And there was some consternation and some, trepidation around it. So this is why, we've been encouraging people for some time to put these ideas forward so that we're not cramming in discussions at the very last minute. But
that's what's happening. It's coming up to the very last minute, and they're still having these conversations and hashing out details. Very similar to how the state of Illinois puts their budget together when it comes to last minute changes and not having a full vetting of the budget before it's ultimately passed. I mean, they have come into session January, February, March, April, May, and then they drop the budget. Why don't they get it started in April? I've heard people ask, but who knows? But the chaos is something that Johnson says he's hoping to avoid.
So he likely was speaking of ideas that will be implemented over time. So yes, there are a lot of good ideas out of there. I think the best idea was when I signed the executive order to commission the gathering in the first place.
Hey there.
Hey.
Based on the developments of today, since we talked to you 24 hours ago, do you believe that the final budget will be passed by the end of the year?
It has to be, right? Look, I'm going to do everything that I can to avoid the chaos that, quite frankly, there's some... There are some individuals that want chaos to occur because those interests benefit from chaos, and they will pit communities against one another to fulfill their political goal. I'm going to do everything in my power to avoid that type of chaos because nobody benefits from that except for the handful of people who have become accustomed to controlling and dominating government.
What's gonna happen? We'll be watching, and I think might actually mean that we'll be watching into the holidays as to what happens in the city of Chicago with how they're going to spend Chicago city taxpayers' money. At thecentersquare.com on the Illinois page, I'm Greg Bishop, editor of Illinois at the Center Square. Get the headlines by clicking newsletter, and we'll send you emails with these headlines. It's not just what's going on in Illinois, but across the country. But with a partnership we've got, a bunch of watchdogs looking at the judiciary. They bring us this headline: Cook County property tax system sale unconstitutional. Let's go through this together, as we've got a lot of eyes on property taxes continuing to go up in a state that has the highest property taxes in the country. And obviously it's a local issue that counties deal with, and they also have local school districts that impose taxes. That's the most of your tax bill. You've got library districts, sanitation districts, you've got community college districts, you've got mosquito abatement districts, you've got park districts, you've got all of these layers of taxing bodies on your property tax bill in the state of Illinois, and all of that's been adding up to bring about some pretty sharp increases for people. Cook County being one of those places, and I think it was earlier this week we shared with you the Chicago Flips Red group saying that they want to boycott property taxes until they get a forensic audit on where all of the money's going from record high and highest in the nation property tax increases.
We are calling for a boycott. We will not pay another cent in property taxes until we see a forensic audit, until we see where our tax dollars are going, and until we see it being spent to help the people who actually live here, to help our children and our families and our neighbors. Just like he said, hands off Chicago, we say hands off our property taxes and hands off our taxes. We need answers. We need transparency. We need to know where every penny of our tax dollars is going.
So again, that's Danielle Carter Walters
on the White
talking about the property tax situation and how they're encouraging people to boycott. But let's go to the story at thecentersquare.com from our partners at Legal Newsline and read through this, because this is impacting Cook County. So Cook County's longstanding system of collecting property tax debts by seizing and selling people's homes worth hundreds of thousands of dollars over unpaid taxes worth a fraction of that amount is unconstitutional, according to a federal judge ruling this week. District Judge Matthew Kennelly sided with a group of former Cook County homeowners in the long-running class action seeking to end the county government's use of its current so-called tax sale system. In the ruling, Keneally said that he agreed the county's system amounts to violations of property owners' rights to just compensate under the Fifth Amendment and have that just compensation, and to protect against unjust and excessive fines under the Eighth Amendment. Says homeowners' failure to pay their property taxes undoubtedly causes harm to Cook County by depriving the county of funding. Yet that harm is limited to the taxes owed and the costs of obtaining those taxes. There's little justification for imposing any fine beyond the taxes, interest, and costs due, especially when homeowners already suffer the punishment of losing their rights to their residences. Keneally, however, stopped short of the points of ordering Cook County to repay the named plaintiffs, or perhaps as many as 1,700 other property owners whose homes and other real estate was taken by the county through what Keneally said is an unconstitutional tax debt collection process. Keneally said damages will need to be calculated later in further proceedings over the extent of the county's liability under the law. So Keneally's December 9th decision, again coming this week, comes as another win for the plaintiffs and their lawyers as they continue efforts to force counties in Illinois and potentially the state government itself to adapt their property tax collection processes and rules to comply with U.S. Supreme Court ruling. The lawsuit against Cook County was filed in 2022 in Chicago federal court. A separate action has been lodged against a group of other county governments, including Illinois' second and third largest counties, DuPage and Lake County, and yet another lawsuit is pending in federal court in southern Illinois. The cases all center around the common accusation that Illinois and its county governments have all but illegally ignored a recent landmark U.S. Supreme Court decision and continued to seize homes over unpaid property taxes. In the decision, at the heart of the case, in the 2023 ruling known as Hennepin v. Tyler, the Supreme Court sided with a homeowner in Hennepin County, Minnesota, whose $40,000 condo was seized and sold by the county over $2,300 of unpaid property taxes, plus $12,700 in penalties and interest. Hennepin County then kept the surplus from the sale in a practice dubbed by critics as home equity theft. So you can go and actually read more of this, but clearly you've got this issue of property taxes, and when they're extremely high in Illinois and people can't pay them, then the county can go and seize that property and do a tax sale on that property, and the proceeds. And I've heard about this all across the state of Illinois. All of this while you've got states like Florida toying with the idea of getting rid of property taxes. Now, that may have to be done on a local basis, county by county in a state like Florida, but in Illinois, we've got the highest property taxes and court battles over how those property taxes being so high, people can't pay, and having their property taken away from them and sold by the county. You know, it doesn't matter if you buy your house outright with cash, you still got to pay the property taxes. You may own the title to that house, the deed to that house, but you still owe property taxes on that. Even 10 years after you've paid your house off, you still owe property taxes on that. Do you ever actually own your property, or are you always going to have to pay that government property tax? Again, a debate that apparently down in Florida they're willing to have. Where else they're going to have that in the country, we'll be watching, obviously. But something important just get in front of you this morning, and a story that you'll see at thecentersquare.com. Again, go to thecentersquare.com, get the newsletter in your inbox, and wake up with us each and every weekday morning here for more Illinois in Focus, only with The Center Square. I'm Greg Bishop, editor of Illinois at thecentersquare.com. This is Illinois in Focus.